Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content. April 27th, 1521. Mactan Island, the Philippines. A force of armed men stand in formation along the sandy beach, their weathered hands gripping rattan spears, clubs, and bows knocked with poison-tipped arrows. They are heavily tattooed, muscular, battle-hardened, and determined, their resolve heightened by the music of their tribesmen and a ferocious desire to defend their homeland to the death. Today they face an unknown enemy, one bearing strange weapons and customs, one said to be capable of unimaginable cruelty and brutality. Yet still the men of Mactan stand strong, unwavering in the face of a reputedly invincible enemy. Their chieftain steps forward. He is a powerful man, dressed in the regal garb denoting his position. He grips a mighty and fearsome weapon, holds it aloft, and points it in the direction of his foes. They are approaching now, in a mighty wooden warship bristling with cannon. The men themselves are strange looking, a pale pinkish-white hue to their skin. They carry swords of steel and wear metallic armor unlike anything the Mactan have ever seen. Many of them carry weapons said to spit fire and kill men from great distances. Yet still the Mactan stand, unafraid, unconquered. Their chieftain shouts his battle cry, one that is met by his comrades, one of fury and determination.
Let these strange men come! Let them try to set foot on our island! Let them see how we can fight.
Hello, and welcome back to Badass of the Week, the show where we talk about the badass history of badasses. My name is Ben Thompson, and I am joined by co-host / producer Andrew Jacobs today. Andrew, thank you for coming back on the show and pinch hitting yet again for to talk about a badass.
Of course, no need to thank me. I think it's my job.
Yeah, it basically is at this point. It's got to be on your LinkedIn or something.
Yeah, I'm reminded of Mad Men, when they're in the elevator and Peggy's like, "You never say thank you." And he goes, "That's what the money's for."
All that money that we're making off the show.
Yeah, all that money. We are making so much money, and that's rolling in the dough here.
I don't have to say thank you because you've already put the down payment on the gold-plated boat, and you're just gonna sail it off to.
But the boat is called the Badass,
yes,
of course,
the USS Badass.
Yeah. I would absolutely never buy a boat. That's a terrible. Everyone says they're terrible investments.
Yeah, I think it is actually significantly cheaper to just rent one every time you want to take a boat out. My wife's dad has a boat and he loves it, but yeah, it's a lot of maintenance. It just kind of sits there and collects barnacles, and you've got to scrape it and everything breaks. And my wife's father jokes that anytime you put naval or maritime in front of a piece of equipment, if it's designed for the water, it's 4 times more expensive than if you got that same piece for your car or your house.
Oh yeah, I believe that. Yeah, I mean, I'm like, do I want to go sit on? I don't really like fishing that much, so do I want to just sit in the hot sun on a lake? No. Being in the middle of the ocean and staring down into the void of the depths, God knows what is down there, awaiting me. Not interested.
Lots of predators ready to attack you from 3 dimensions. Yep.
Yeah. Kraken, Davy Jones. But those super yachts kind of look okay.
That wouldn't be so bad, Maybe we should just wait. We should just wait for a couple more episodes until we can afford one of those.
Well, I mean, we're really picking up steam here.
Yes.
We're verging on super yacht money, I think.
Yeah. It'll be you and me and some Dubai oil magnates and some Russian oligarchs, various royalty from other European countries. We'll just be sitting there with them sipping drinks with umbrellas in them.
I feel like any movie, my reference point for the world is movies, right? So like any movie, I mean, you could read about it in history too, but then also you watch the movies where they some kind of bring history to life a little bit. And any movie when they're talking about like guys on ships and, sailing the ocean, it always seems bad.
It always looks like it's bad.
I mean, Captain Ron, that was a fun one. I love myself some Captain Ron. Still not some semi-dangerous adventure, but then you start getting to things
they do almost die multiple times in that movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's a romantic comedy.
Pirates and whatnot, but then you start getting to like things like Master and Commander, and you're just like, this seems horrible.
Yeah, it's never fun. You would never have wanted to do that, and that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. If you want to hear a story of how much it sucks to be on a boat in the 15th century, 16th century, let's talk about Ferdinand Magellan and his voyage around the world.
Perfect. Yes. Let's just real fun times. I'm excited to hear about this.
Okay. All right, cool. So we're going to get into it. I actually wanted to tell the story because I'm going to be traveling to Portugal soon. And whenever I travel to a country I've never been to before, I like to kind of dive into the history so that when I see old stuff, in the area, I'll have an idea of what it is. Sometimes my wife will kind of laugh because I get a little excited about this tiny little thing in a museum because I'm like, oh yeah, I wrote about this guy once. It's this little tiny piece in the back corner of a thing surrounded by much more impressive looking things. But if I've kind of done my research ahead of time, I can be excited about little pieces of little artifacts and things. And so with the Portugal trip, there's not much I have to confess, I don't know a ton about the history of Portugal. So the first name that came to mind was Magellan, who was Portuguese. Although, as we will see in this story, he is not beloved by the Portuguese to this day. And the King of Portugal tried several times to have him murdered. So, yes.
Whoops.
Yeah, oopsie. So let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to tell this crazy story of Ferdinand Magellan, the Portuguese guy who was almost killed by the King of Portugal and then attempted to sail all the way around the world and become the first person to ever do that.
Excellent.
We'll be right back. Ferdinand Magellan was born in around 1480 in northern Portugal. We don't know the exact year. We don't know many specifics of his early life, except that his father was probably some sort of minor nobility in Portugal. So Magellan, through various connections, probably through his father, was able at some point to get a job working as a page for the royal court for the King of Portugal. So as a teenager, Magellan is working for the court of King Manuel the Fortunate, who is an important king in Portugal's history. This is the beginning of Portugal becoming like a very well-known naval power in Europe. In 1499, when Magellan is 19, he's in the court when Vasco da Gama returns from his famous voyage. Da Gama was a Portuguese guy who sailed around the Horn of Africa, sailed around the Cape of Africa, and got to India by sailing around Africa. He was the first person to ever do that, and kind of discovering that route kind of changed the age of exploration forever. And
so unlike some people that we know, he actually made it to India.
He did. He made it to India. Da Gama is kind of the beginning of this. Yeah, Columbus has sailed in 1492, and in 1499, Da Gama is like, oh, well, you can't get to India by going west, but you can get there by going east around Africa. Okay, Portugal then quickly becomes like a naval empire. They've got this trade route set up. They're starting to make connections in India. They're bringing stuff back from India. It's much faster than the old way, which was the Silk Road. You take things on land. We talked about Marco Polo. You take things on land or by camel or horse, and you get attacked by bandits, and you have to go through all of these government blockades where they want to tax you for everything. Sail around, get the stuff, sail back, faster, more efficient, less waste. Great. Magellan.
Imagine how many little main streets dried up when the Silk Road route Silk Road 66 no longer
all these mom and pop bandit operations go out of business.
yeah, wow.
So Magellan wants to get in on this. He's in the royal court. This is all a very exciting time to be in Portugal. And at the age of 25, he sets sail to India with a fleet. He sails around the Cape of Good Hope, goes to India, stays in India for about 8 years. While he's over there, this is the peak colonization time. Turns out India and a lot of people in India didn't really want the Portuguese there, and there's some fighting. And at one point, Magellan is wounded in battle in 1506. He's in a naval battle against the navies of the various Indian rulers. He's wounded there. 3 years later, he's wounded again in battle, fighting against the Egyptians. So he's there. He's doing stuff. He's exploring India. He's getting into fights.
It's got some scars.
Yeah, exactly. And so he at one point is sailing around, and like you said, these boats are they're not that fun to be on. It is like the movies where you're just kind of I feel like you're just sunburned all the time, and the nutrition's not great. They haven't figured out the scurvy thing yet. Yeah. Scurvy's gonna take part in this story with a vengeance. So we'll see that a little bit later. Magellan is part of the first Portuguese expedition to the islands of Malacca, which is part of present-day Indonesia. He's on the first ship to make contact with these people that were living there. And the people in Malacca, they have this, at this point, he's the first European there, but this is a very established city. It's got a lot of money. They grow spices. It's this trade hub between India and China. They've converted to Islam because they've made contact with the Middle East. They've got a sultan who's kind of he's a little out there, but this is a big established civilization that the Portuguese land on. And the Portuguese are trying to make a deal with them. Hey, why don't you guys stop being Muslim, become Catholic, and pledge your loyalty to the Portuguese Empire?
It's very strange.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Sultan says, yeah, sure, that sounds great. We'll be right out to your boats. Just wait for us.
All right.
We're definitely coming to do that. And the Sultan attacks the Portuguese. Of course, they scale the ships and they try to attack. Magellan once again finds himself in a battle where it's said that he risked his life to save his commander and some of the crew members on his ship. He's in this big battle. The Portuguese win. Some are captured. And there are some stories. I said this Sultan's a little out there. There are some stories that he had conquered an island that was full of cannibals. And one of the smaller Indonesian islands in his empire had been the civilization was cannibals, and that the Sultan would feed his enemies to the cannibals if he captured them.
Classic.
So, yes, exactly.
that is some great, sort of myth making, warning, don't cross me, I'll feed you to the island of the cannibals, sort of BS that would, get spread around the docks for visitors you might not like.
Yes, exactly. So the Portuguese escape, and they return a couple of years later with a fleet that attacks the island and conquers it for Portugal. Magellan is part of plundering the civilization. He ends up with a bunch of money and plunder and stuff. The commander who he rescued in that battle, this guy named Francisco Serrão, he goes to the Spice Islands, which are nearby, becomes an advisor to the Sultan there. And it's just the Spice Islands are great. They're amazing. There's all this spice. There's all this money. It's super rich. I'm getting all of this. He gets into the trade business there, is making a ton of money, sailing off on these super yachts we were just talking about. And Magellan has made some
plunder.
Money. Yes,
great word, not used enough. Got to bring that one back.
Yes, Magellan, he gets plunder. He gets money that he's taken from this rich civilization that the Portuguese have just conquered. But he doesn't get reassigned to the Spice Islands. He asks to, but he doesn't get. It doesn't come through. Instead, Magellan gets dispatched to attack a naval base in Morocco. And that attack is a big failure. He's seriously wounded, and he gets injured in the leg and walks with a limp for the rest of his life.
Yeah, the Spice Islands sounds a lot nicer.
Sounds a lot better than attacking a fortress in Morocco, yeah. while he's in recovery, he's at a Portuguese base, and he's at a Portuguese base in Morocco to recover. And while he's there, he's accused of trading illegally with the Moors. The details of that I don't know too much about, but I guess you're not supposed to trade with them, and he did. Anyway, now it gets kind of...
I'm curious about these trade laws now.
Yes. Don't trade with these guys. They're the enemy. So whatever happens, he gets blacklisted, and he can't find a job. He can't work anymore. For like the next couple of years, he doesn't get any work. Okay, so... In 1515, Magellan's there. He's getting all these letters from his buddy in the Spice Islands. And he's like, dreaming about that. He's got the postcard up on his wall.
Yeah.
He's there with his recovering from his injury. He's got all of his scars he got from fighting for Portugal. He's made a little bit of money off it, but not a lot. And he decides, look, right now to get to the Spice Islands, you have to take that Vasco da Gama route. You've got to go around Africa and sail around through to Indonesia from the south. He's like, that's cool, but at this point, by 1515, Brazil has been discovered. There has been Europeans have landed in Brazil. They've established cities there. There's a little bit of a colony there, and Magellan starts thinking that maybe if there was a way around Brazil, like there is around Africa, if you get around the southern tip of Brazil, maybe you could get to the Spice Islands that way and it would be shorter.
Wait. Are you telling me the Earth is not flat? Wait a minute here. Circumnavigating the globe.
Yes, he thinks that if you went all the way around, you could come off one side of the map and come back on the other side of the map. And
this is radical stuff, dude.
Yes. He becomes friends with this guy named Rui Faleiro, who is a genius navigator, but all the descriptions of him are that he's just kind of like a little bit nutty. They say he sleeps very little and wanders around almost out of his mind. This guy just kind of the impression I have of Rui Faleiro is that he just kind of walks around muttering stuff about maps and circumnavigating and all of this stuff, right? And so he sounds
like a secret genius.
Secret genius, yes. He's a little out there, but he's got a plan for how we can the Earth is round and we can sail around it, and we're going to get to the Spice Islands from the other direction, and it'll be faster. Okay, so Magellan starts pitching the idea to King Manuel of Portugal, and he frames it as look, maybe it'll be faster. And King Manuel's like, no, I don't really care. This is working fine. What we've got going on right now is working just fine. But what Magellan does is something interesting. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Treaty of Tordesillas, but it's that
very. It's my favorite treaty.
Your favorite treaty. It's the one. So you might have heard the story, which is when the New World was first discovered, there was some danger that there would be this big conflict. There would be this big war over fighting for control of the different regions of South America and North America. And at some point, because these were both Catholic countries, Portugal and Spain, the Pope got involved, and he said, look, I'm going to draw a line through South America. I will draw a line through the world here. Spain, you take everything on this side. Portugal, you get everything on this side. So Spain,
easy peasy.
Right, yeah. Spain gets most of South America, which is why most of South America speaks Spanish, except for Brazil. Brazil was on the eastern side of that line. So Brazil was Portugal's domain. And it doesn't look very evenly divided if you look at South America, but Portugal also got trading rights in India and China and Indonesia and all of these other areas to the east that were already very lucrative for trade. So that was the divide that was made. Okay, so Magellan, he kind of wants to, he's like, well, maybe it'll be faster for us to sail to the Spice Islands by going west. But King Manuel's like, I don't care. I have the Spice Islands. We just go east. There's no big deal. Why do we need to find a western route there? It doesn't matter. I'm not going to spend a bunch of money to fund this expedition. So Magellan can't get work. He can't get this thing funded. So what does he do? He goes to Spain and he talks to the King of Spain, and he says, look, I think
sneaky little
goes to Spain.
All right.
He goes to Spain. He says, hey, look, if I can get to the Spice Islands by going west, if the Spice Islands are west of Chile, there's a chance that it actually could be argued that it's in your sphere. Like, where would the line be? Sure, Portugal gets India and China and Indonesia, but the Spice Islands are a little more east. Maybe if I can get it by going west, you can claim the Spice Islands and take it over from the Portuguese.
I mean, everything is west of that line if you really want to.
That's the problem with arbitrarily drawing lines for the map.
Yeah. You can't just draw one line and say everything east and everything west. There needs to be some other lines in this situation. But that's why it's only a top 5 treaty and not the best treaty ever. But
yes,
okay.
You need a second line. And at the time, there was a lot of uncharted land with where the line would go somewhere in what we now know as the Pacific Ocean, but we didn't know what the deal was with that at the time. Okay, so the King of Spain is like, cool. Charles I is like, yeah, we don't have any territories over there in the east, and it's very valuable, so let's give it a shot. So he puts together the Armada of Molucca, which is going to be headed by Ferdinand Magellan. He's going to get together 5 ships, 270 men, and 2 years of supplies. And he starts organizing this expedition. It takes him quite a while to organize it. But word gets back to King Manuel of Portugal that Magellan, once his loyal servant, who has been wounded in battle for him and has been awarded various decorations by the king, has now gone over to Spain and is going to try to help them steal the Spice Islands from Portugal. So King Manuel starts ordering all loyal Portuguese citizens to F with Magellan.
Nice.
They vandalize his house. They knock him down in the street. There's some suspicion that maybe a couple guys tried to assassinate him at one point. There might have been a hit out on him. And then when, they just keep messing with him the entire time, every time he's trying to organize this fleet and get these men together, the Portuguese are messing with him, trying to stop him from getting this expedition out. And he eventually gets it going. In September 1519, he sails away. And right as he's sailing away with these 5 ships, there's a word that the Portuguese have mobilized a war fleet to come attack him and stop him from leaving. So he has to run for it, and basically barely escapes being sunk by the Portuguese fleet right out of the harbor. So he gets out and he sails across the Atlantic, which by 1519 has been done enough that, sure, it's a big deal. It had only just recently been done 20 years ago, but people have kind of done this now. So it's not, it's hard work and it's tough, but it's not, it's still a big deal to do that, freaking wooden sailing ship. But he does it. He sails over and arrives in Brazil. He starts sailing south in Brazil and lands at a place called Guanabara Bay, which was undeveloped at the time, but is currently the location of Rio de Janeiro. So
nice.
Yeah,
that is a nice spot to hang.
Yeah, hang out on Ipanema Beach, Copacabana. Yeah, not a bad place to hang out for a little while. He's there for a little bit. He sails down to what's now Puerto San Julian in Argentina, and they camp out for the winter because it takes them a long time. They set out in September. By the time they get down here, winter's starting to set in, and you're basically going to be going down to the edge of Antarctica. You don't want to do that in the winter, so we're going to camp here.
Now, winter though is down there is July though, right?
Yes, yeah, because it's a long journey, right? So by the time they get down there,
so it's months later.
Yeah,
it's our summer for us Northern Hemisphere listeners.
Yes, exactly.
And okay, continue.
And so they're gonna set up here. They're gonna wait for the spring and then start to try to find this naval route through the southern tip of South America. So they camp out and they're there for 5 months. And it turns out that Spain and Portugal don't really like each other, and the Spanish and the Portuguese don't really get along. And there ends up being, first it's some rumblings of discontent. Then that rumbling gets more organized. And at some point there is a mutiny against Magellan at this camp. And it's organized by the Spaniards, who don't like that Magellan's Portuguese, and they think that he's giving his Portuguese guys preferential treatment. He's got some family members with him there. He's got a lot of Portuguese guys. There's people from other regions. Most of the people here are Portuguese and Spanish. There's some French, Italians, other people, but the big rivalry is between the Spaniards and the Portuguese. And
seems predictable.
Yes, exactly. Because those are countries that hate each other.
They speak different languages.
Yes, they speak different languages. They don't like each other. They border each other. They've been at war through various periods of time recently here. And they're both competing for all of the gold in the New World. Okay. Like, and when I mean a mutiny, it's not like these guys give Magellan a letter. Like, they steal 3 ships. There's fighting. A bunch of people are killed in like hand-to-hand combat, like with swords and guns and things. Magellan gets control of the situation, has all of the organizers of the mutiny beheaded. And then anyone who participated in the mutiny is chained up, is tied up with chains, and is forced to spend the rest of that winter doing hard labor while chained up.
What I was gonna say, what is hard? Isn't it all hard labor?
I don't know. Yeah, they're like beating rocks and stuff, like gulag kind of stuff.
I don't think any part of being on any of these ships is not hard labor.
They were in camp, so I guess they're just I imagine that these guys are just doing all the work now. You're doing all the cooking, you're getting all the chopping the logs, you're building the stuff, you're digging the latrines, and you're doing it while chained up.
Small rocks because you need the small rocks for some reason.
Yeah, sleeping in chains. Great stuff. Yeah. Okay. So he eventually unchains them when the summer shows up and reorganizes them. And when October 1520 rolls around, he's like, all right, guys, let's get going. Let's continue on our voyage. Let's all work together to find the southern passage through South America.
I'm sure it was all very kumbaya.
Real high morale at this time.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it's October, which is going into the summer in the Southern Hemisphere, but it's still cold. It's still Antarctica. There's storms. There's big rocks. There's no charts for what any of this stuff is. Even like there are indigenous people who live in this area, but they don't have naval charts of what to expect here. They are trying to find this passage, big storms, big waves. One ship gets smashed and sinks. One ship, the guys like mutiny again and just run away and sail back to Spain. And they spend
they're sailing around though at the Cape of Good Hope, right?
The Cape of Good Hope is Africa. These guys are sailing around what will be known as the Strait of Magellan.
Interesting.
Yes.
What a coincidence.
It takes them a month to get through that little tiny strip of South America, but they do it, and they get through the Strait of Magellan, and they get out to the ocean, and it's very calm out there, and Magellan is like, we've done it, we've reached it. He names it the Pacific Ocean because it's so pacified and calm and chill. So he calls it the Pacific Ocean, and he calls the Strait of Magellan. And we did it. Now we're on to the Spice Islands. Should only take us 3-4 days, according to my calculations.
There. Yeah. Almost there. Just rewind for a sec, though. I was just say Cape of Good Hope. It's very optimistic. I like that one better. They should have just gone that way.
Yeah. Well, Magellan is not a very optimistic kind of guy. It sounds like. So, okay, he gets through the Strait of Magellan, onto the Spice Islands. According to his charts, it should be 3-4 days tops.
Yeah.
It takes 110 days. Almost 4 months, because while Magellan and Ruy Falio,
slight delay.
Yeah, while they were correct that the Earth is round and that the Pacific Ocean connects to the Spice Islands, turns out the Pacific Ocean is way bigger than they were expecting it to be. Over the course of 4 months, they sail. 30 members of the crew die, most of them of scurvy. The ones who aren't dead, their teeth are falling out and their hair's falling out and stuff.
Oh, God.
They're working hard. They don't have enough food to turn around. So like at some point they're like, look, we don't have enough food to make it back to Argentina now. So we just got to go forward until we either find something or die. And they're going to find something. Let's take a really quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about what Magellan found in his adventure across the Pacific Ocean. All right, welcome back. It is March 1521, and Magellan is floating on the Pacific Ocean. They sail for a long time, and they have all of these hardships. It's just really pain and suffering and misery until eventually one day they spot land on the horizon. The island we know today as Guam. They find it's kind of out in the middle of out in the middle of the ocean, but they find it
kind of out. You were going to say the middle of nowhere.
Yes,
yeah, it is kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
That they hit it. They find it. They hit it. They encounter some local people there. They attempt to trade some stuff with them. It goes poorly, and Magellan and his guys kill a bunch of the locals and burn down their village.
Great.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Oh man. Come on.
Great. Okay.
What first impression?
Yep. Yeah, that didn't go well. There's a little bit of a communication problem, and it results in the deaths of several people and the destruction of their village. Cool. A couple weeks later, they set sail from Guam. They've kind of restocked on some food and some water. They arrived.
Just out of curiosity, do they know had anyone been to Guam? Like any like European explorers been to Guam before? So this was a new place. They weren't sure where they were even. Yeah. Or did they know what direction to go from there?
No, because they continue sailing and then they encounter the Philippines, which has also not been visited by European explorers.
Oh.
So okay. They might be going off some charts from the Chinese or the Indians or possibly the Arabs, because the Philippines was known to the Arab world, but no Europeans had ever been there. So he arrives at the island of Cebu in April, and he shows up. He says, "I'm Magellan. I'm from the Portuguese, or I'm from the Empire of Spain. I'm Catholic. You should all be Catholic, and you should all dedicate yourselves to our king because he's the king of you guys now." And the Cebu chief, he's kind of a clever guy. He's like, sure, I will become a servant of God in Spain, but what's in it for me? And Magellan's like, oh, well, the king will bring you this, he'll bring you this, he'll bring you that. So the chief of Cebu is like, okay, cool. Yeah, we'll give you some food. If you want to build like a little mission here, that's cool. But actually, like, now that you're here, sure, we'll be Catholic. That's easy. But we kind of have a problem with one of our neighbors, this island of Mactan. Like, they've been actually causing some problems. So maybe you should go bring your Catholicism to them, because I don't think they're going to convert. Actually, I think they're Muslim even.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. You scratch my back and I'll scratch your back. A little,
maybe you can help me
diplomacy happening.
Yes. So on April 27th, 1521, Magellan sails over to Mactan to bring them Catholicism in the way that he's brought Catholicism to the rest of the world and all of the other peoples he's met on this story so far. And this is where we're going to run into a guy who, I feel like we haven't talked about a lot of badass stuff just yet, but the chief of the Mactan, he's a pretty badass guy. His name is Lapu Lapu, and he is credited with being the guy who invented like Filipino stick fighting. Have you ever seen that with the eskrima sticks where they just like pound each other with a bamboo stick?
I have not, but the fact that he's credited with inventing it.
Yes.
Not just like he's like, oh, he was a stick fighter. No, he invented stick fighting.
Yes. He's there are all these stories about him. He had a rivalry with the chieftain of the other island. It's possible that Lapu Lapu had converted to Islam, although we're not really sure about that, and it seems like that might not be the case. Various stories mention that he has, but he is like, when we talk about the U.S. being in the Philippines, there's all these stories of like these badass like warriors who have like tattoos, and the reason that the U.S. switched from a 38 caliber handgun to a 45 is because the 38 wouldn't put these guys down because they were so hardcore. You could shoot them and they wouldn't go down because they were just like so like frenzied in battle. And that's
I had not heard that at all.
Yes.
And hopefully I think the Filipinos are good friends now.
They are good friends now, luckily. Yes. I went to an amazing Filipino restaurant in Seattle the other day called Archipelago. That was just like some of the best food I've ever had. And and like they're friendly and they're great. But at this time, Lapu Lapu standing there waiting for Ferdinand Magellan, the colonizer, to land here and do the Guam thing, or do the Argentina thing, or do the Spice Islands thing, or do the thing that he's been doing. Lapu Lapu is not interested in this, and he gets his guys together. He's got a little bit of notification that the colonizers are coming, and he gets his dudes who are big, tough, tattooed Filipino stick fighting warriors who
I just like that the chieftain on Cebu's like, hey, yeah, this is cool. You know who you should go see? like whether or not they like, maybe he and the Lapu Lapu weren't friends, but maybe he was also like, Lapu Lapu's gonna deal with these guys.
Yeah, there's some debate on whether, like, what their relationship was, whether like Lapu Lapu had like kind of in theory pledged loyalty and was just kind of still doing his own thing, whether they liked each other or not. But yeah, so Magellan shows up and he's gonna land he's got his boats, right? He's got ships, he's got armor, he's got crossbows, he's got guns, and Lapu Lapu and his guys, they have bows and they have rattan spears and they have sticks, but they don't have firearms, right? And in throughout the story, we've seen Magellan be able to do quite a bit with very little because his technological advantage is so great. So what he's going to do is he's going to sail his boats into the harbor and open fire with his cannons and scare everybody and blow them all away, and then step on in and plant the flag. Except Lapu Lapu is a little different because he arrays his troops on the beach, but as Magellan starts to sail up to bring his cannons to bear, there is this like big reef that blocks him from bringing his boats into the harbor. It's too deep. They start scratching their boats on the bottom, and they don't want to risk destroying their boats trying to attack this guy. So they have to abandon, they have to leave.
You don't want to end up on an island with Lapu Lapu.
You do not. So they anchor them, and they get on their rowboats, and they start rowing on their non-cannon bearing rowboats up to the shore where these guys are waiting for them. And Magellan's got maybe 50 to 60 guys with him. And, he's outnumbered pretty heavily, but that hasn't really mattered because these guys wear armor and they have guns. And so they start rowing up and they get out of their boats and they're still in the water. They haven't gone on land yet. They're standing in the water. Lapu Lapu is there with his guys, and Magellan and his dudes start open fire with their muskets. Now,
they don't even say hi.
No, I mean, it seems it's pretty clear what's going to happen. There's going to be a battle. So they open fire, and here's the thing to consider with Lapu Lapu and his guys is that, like, generally speaking, when civilizations first encounter gunpowder and firearms, it's scary, right? Could you imagine these guys for a minute?
Was that?
These guys are like, they don't look like any humans you've ever seen before. They're carrying technology you've never seen before. They've got these guns. They're loud. And it'd be like being attacked by space aliens, I feel like.
Sure.
But, they shoot their guns, but the Filipinos, they don't run, they don't get scared, they don't break, they attack. They run into the surf, attacking and start attacking the Spaniards with their weapons. And it turns out that these rattan spears, they don't go through the steel breastplates, they don't go through the helmets. But Lapu Lapu during the battle, as he runs out there and starts fighting these guys, he's like, look, they took their leg armor off so that they could walk through the water.
So you don't
So their legs are unarmored. And so his guys start shooting poisoned arrows at the legs of the Portuguese, and his men start attacking their legs. And once the guy's down in the water with his heavy armor on, you just drown him.
Oh gosh.
Like, he's done for. And it's a massacre. Lapu Lapu and his guys just charge.
I mean,
and just
shouldn't laugh, but Magellan, I think, was really. He
was asking for it.
He was asking for it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're annihilated. The Portuguese are crushed by the Filipinos. They run out there. They beat them to death. The Portuguese on the ships after the battle, they request that Magellan's body be returned to them, so that they can give him a proper burial as a captain and a nobleman. And Lapu Lapu says, okay, we'll do it. And they look around, they can't find it. They can't find his body. They just beat him into like a paste. They can't recover his body because they don't know where it is. It's just gone. And And now he today is like the national hero of the Philippines across all the islands. April 27th is Lapu Lapu Day in the Philippines. He appears on the shield of the National Philippine Police. The Polynesian resort at Disney has a drink named after him, which is, that doesn't happen too often. It's a shot of dark rum, a shot of Bacardi 151, a shot of sour mix, and then you put together with ice, orange juice, and pineapple juice. So
sounds pretty good.
Sounds delicious, but it sounds like also like it'll kick your ass just like he will.
Yeah.
A shot of 151. Serious business.
Yeah. Too many of those and you'll be floating.
They won't find your body in the surf either.
Yeah.
And that's the end of Magellan. So, he gets credited with being the first man to circumnavigate the globe, but he doesn't do it. He gets halfway there and then gets beaten to death in the Philippines, and a guy ends up taking over. The Spaniard, a couple guys take over. They're incompetent, and then eventually this guy named Juan Sebastian Elcano takes over as commander of the expedition. He was a Basque who was sailing as a Spaniard or for Spain, and he gets them to the Spice Islands. They arrive there. They do the trading thing there. But
now, was this guy Juan Elcano? Is that what you said? Yeah. Was he with them from the beginning?
He was with them from the beginning. He's a Basque, and he sailed out from the beginning, crossed the Atlantic, went to Rio de Janeiro, then he went to Argentina. He participated in the mutiny against Magellan, was chained up and had to serve the hard labor in chains. Survived the Strait of Magellan, was not part of the battle in the Philippines, but then eventually he was just some guy. He wasn't like nobility. He wasn't a captain. He wasn't any of that kind of stuff. But the expedition starts getting more and more depleted. They lose all those guys to scurvy crossing the Pacific. They lose a bunch of guys in the surf outside of to Lapu Lapu and his men. By the time he gets to the Spice Islands, there's only a couple boats left, and he's just kind of promoted for being the most competent sailor left alive on the expedition.
I mean, I would argue that he was the first man to circumnavigate the globe.
Yes.
Right? Because it's pretty clear Magellan did not.
He did not succeed, yes. And so that's the interesting bit, because he gets to Spice Islands. It turns out, no, there's no chance it's in the Spanish sphere of influence, if you're going to draw that line. But they do trade. And Elcano is the one who comes up with the idea, because Magellan just wanted to get to the Spice Islands. But Elcano is the one who comes up with the idea that, like, look, we know how to get home from here by sailing west. Like, this is important. We could be the first people to ever circumnavigate the globe. Let's do it. Let's finish this out. It's going to be easier than going the other way. And so, great, he's going to do this. But there's an important consideration, which is that this sphere over here is the Portuguese sphere of influence. You've got to sail through Indonesia, India, past China, past Africa, which has Portuguese colonies. And he's in a Spanish-flagged ship sailing for the King of Spain in enemy territory where there are no Spanish bases. Mm-hmm. And the Portuguese want to kill him because they hate Magellan. So he's got to sail back. He's got to cover tons of ground. And I mean, the journey here is just kind of what you said. Like, it looks like it sucks being on a boat. This journey sucks. They can't put in to shore anywhere because everything's hostile. There's Portuguese fleets sailing to try to get them. They don't want them to be the first people to circumnavigate the globe. Word's getting around that, like, these guys are getting close to doing it. Portuguese are trying to stop him. Spanish can't send any help. These guys can't pull over anywhere because they're going to get captured. At one point, they do pull over and they get attacked by the Portuguese, who capture 20 of his men somewhere off the coast of Africa. And they just live on the boat, and they're all just dying of scurvy and sick and exhausted and sunburned and heat stroking and all of this stuff. And in September of 1522, they finally arrive. Elcano and his guys arrive at Seville, and they have covered 43,000 miles over the course of 3 years. Of the 5 ships, only 1 survives. Of the 270 men, only 18 are left.
Oh wow!
When they return. Elcano, as you said, he's the guy who circumnavigated the globe. He becomes this big hero. Like, he's a huge hero in Spain in his own time. His story kind of gets lost because he eventually gets lumped in with Magellan, who gets credit for everything. But Magellan didn't circumnavigate the globe. He died. Elcano did it. He got all the way through. He gets he's a big hero. He gets a coat of arms given to him by the King of Spain. It's kind of cool. It's got a picture of the Earth, and then in Latin it says you encircled me, or something like you circumnavigated me. It's kind of fun. He becomes a hero, but it doesn't last too long for him, because 4 years later, like, his reward for circumnavigating the globe is that 4 years later, the king gives him his own command. You're going to command an armada. We're going to sail out to the Spice Islands and do a big trading thing and come back, and we'll be even more rich. And so Elcano sets sail and then dies of scurvy on the trip at the age of 40.
The ripe old age of 40.
Made it to 40.
I say with only a hint of sarcasm.
And then that's it. That's the end of him. He was popular. He was more well known for a long time. There was, I guess, a Magellan rehab project at some point that made him the more famous person again. But for a while, Elcano was credited with being the first person to circumnavigate the globe, which he was.
Interesting. Because I learned growing up, about Magellan.
Yeah. Did
not learn about Elcano.
Right.
You don't even learn that Magellan died in the Philippines.
Doing something shitty.
Yeah. He's just the first person to circumnavigate the globe. Magellan, of course. He didn't even do it.
He didn't do it. He died. He was trying to mess with the Filipinos, and they kicked his ass.
He was too much of it. If he wasn't such a dick, maybe he would have.
Yeah, and that's the story. So we got Magellan. We've got two badasses here in Elcano, who completes this unbelievable. The details of the journey are, like, not super exciting to talk about. It's just a depressing list of, like, depressing things happening to this guy. Right, his journal is just like, this sucks. Oh, today sucked too. Like, it's not super exciting to talk about, but the level of what he did was so impressive. And then we've got another bonus badass with Lapu Lapu and his guys just beating down the colonizer.
Hell yeah, just beating people with sticks.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Yeah, we'll introduce you to a guy that you don't like, and then we'll beat him up with sticks halfway through the story.
They don't even make it onto the island, it sounds like.
No, he never did set foot on the island.
They get off their boats and just get beaten to death. And
he dies in the surf. Yeah, just a red smear in the surf.
Yeah. Oof.
And that's the story. That's the badass for today. Ferdinand Magellan, Lapu Lapu, Juan Elcano, and the first circumnavigation of the globe.
So when you get to Portugal, then the question is Magellan someone they celebrate because he was Portuguese and circumnavigated the globe? I'm making air quotes. Or is he still persona non grata because he double-crossed his own people and tried to do it for Spain?
I don't know. I'll have to find out. I'll have to ask.
Better find out.
I'm just going to grab random strangers on the street and ask them how they feel about Ferdinand Magellan.
Yes, no. Yes, no.
How do we feel about Ferdinand Magellan? Do we like him or no?
Scale from 1 to 10.
Find a nice Filipino restaurant there and ask them how they feel about it.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for listening. Andrew, thanks for coming on. Let me tell the story. This was fun. We will.
Excellent.
We have tons of these stories, and we love telling them.
More to come.
We'll be back again next week with something probably completely different. Thanks so much for listening.
Stay badass.
Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content. Executive producers are me, Ben Thompson, Dr. Patricia Larish, and Andrew Jacobs. Writing is by me and Pat. Story editing by Ian Jacobs. Mixing and music and sound design by Jude Brewer. Special thanks to Noel Brown at iHeartRadio. Badass of the Week is based on my website, badassoftheweek.com, where you can read all sorts of stories about other badasses. If you want to reach out with questions or ideas, you can email us at badasspodcast@badassoftheweek.com. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, follow, listen, and tell your friends and tell your enemies. And please leave us a rating. We'll be back next week with another one.